Welcome to Entry Point Faith. Join us each week to discover fresh meaning in the world and find faith your way. Now, here is Pastor Nancy Lafferty.
On July 4th, 1776, the original 13 colonies of the United States of America officially severed their ties to the rule of Great Britain with a Declaration of Independence. And today, this holiday allows us to reflect on not only our freedom from Great Britain, but also on how we identify as citizens of the United States of America. As a child, I learned in school that our country was a melting pot. I was intrigued by the notion of lots of different people being poured into a place together and blending their cultures and languages and colors. Many people have forgotten or never learned the truth about the beginning of our country. In school, I loved hearing about the hands that built America. I loved learning about the settlements of the colonies, the culture of those early days. But I also know that we are a very different country now. And we have discovered that the history of our nation includes some events and people that were never included in the history books that we read in school. Not everyone has enjoyed the same freedom and benefits that I had as I grew up. And although this country was founded by immigrants, and in fact we are all immigrants, we are still struggling to understand the inequities across our land. So the document that was signed more than 200 years ago contained within it some inherent contradictions. The Declaration of Independence declared that all men are created equal, endowed with the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But the laws that followed did not apply to all people, did not apply to Black or Native Americans or to women. Now, when it comes to thinking about how things are right now emotionally in the United States, I would also identify a different metaphor than a melting pot, because we are so divided politically and in terms of values. I see our country as a land of islands. We are divided into pods of people based on our political and our social beliefs. We live on islands, and sometimes we yell across the water at our neighbors on the next island who have disappointed us, but who are so much like us in so many ways. And then when large-scale tragedy hits us, we quickly and we lovingly build a bridge to the next few islands, and we cross over, and we offer help and love, and we offer prayers, and then when life returns back to normal and the tragedy is over, we tear those bridges back down. And that's the emotional part of living in this country. Always physically separated from each other due to the states and the distance, but always connected to each other in some pep rally kind of way, in spirit and in pride. We are far from a perfect nation, but I still believe in the greatness of this country. Mostly, I guess, I believe in the greatness of people. When things don't make sense, I often turn my sights and my heart inward, and I narrow my gaze. When I look locally at groups of people, I feel encouraged. When I look at kindness and community and support on my individual islands, I know that we're going to be okay. I know that people are often loving and generous and kind. When I think about what it means to be a citizen of this country, I think of freedom like you think of freedom. And even though I know that there are marginalized groups of people who have never really felt free, that bothers me. Again, I find hope in the human spirit, I still believe that people will continue to care about that. People will continue to care about each other and the inequities that exist in our nation. And in caring about the imbalance of freedoms and power and opportunities and wages, I believe good people will continue to fight for those freedoms for all people. A few years ago, a 5th grade teacher asked his students, "What does freedom mean to you?" I love this student's response. This is a young lady named Hadley, and she wrote these words: "Freedom means to have the right to do and say what you like." That's how the dictionary defines freedom. Pope John Paul II said, "Every generation of Americans needs to know that freedom consists not in doing what we like, but having the right to do what we ought." I think freedom is an amazing thing because at 11 years old, I'm able to have an education, learn to play the French horn, and learn how to sing in a choir. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we have police and doctors and firefighters to help us when we need it. We have soldiers fighting for our freedom. Their courage allows me to think of things I'd like to do, like take care of my cats and dogs, or to read, or to draw. That's what freedom means to me. So those words written by that student remind me of a very important passage in the Bible about freedom. It's found in Galatians chapter 5, and it goes like this: "It is absolutely clear that God has called you to a free life. Just make sure that you don't use this freedom as an excuse to do whatever you want to do and destroy your freedom. Rather, use your freedom to serve one another in love." That's how freedom grows. I think this passage helps us to connect patriotism of our nation with its promise of freedom to the freedom that we receive from God. I think that within this passage, there is an important caution that our freedom should never be self-serving, but rather it should be a freedom of generosity, a freedom of compassion. Rosa Parks understood this notion of freedom of generosity and compassion as evidenced by these words: "I would like to be remembered as a person who wanted to be free, so other people would be also free." Our hope lies in people, on the local level, and on the national level, and on the international level. Our hope for true freedom lies in our ability to remember the hands that built our country, and to remember that many of those hands were not allowed in the main house, and to remember that we are all immigrants. Franklin Roosevelt said it best: remember always that all of us are descended from immigrants and revolutionists. Yes, our country is flawed. But despite its failings, our country is a good one. While I keep the phrase melting pot still alive in my head as part of my worldview, I also keep the Statue of Liberty in my head as part of my worldview. I see our country as a lighthouse of hope. I still believe it is one of the greatest lands of opportunity, filled with resources, opportunities for all, education, and hope. Amen.
Thanks for listening in on this week's discussion on Entry Point Faith. You can join the Entry Point Faith community in person every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. at Conner Prairie in Fishers, Indiana. For more information and a transcript of Nancy's messages, visit entrypointonline.org. Entry Point Faith is brought to you in partnership with mypodcast.media.